Anders Fogh Rasmussen, former head of NATO, former Danish Prime Minister, welcome to Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Let's begin with a big geopolitical question. After all we've seen over these last few months, how badly broken is the European security model and can it be repaired?
I think it can be repaired, but no reason to hide that we are at a turning point. We in Europe have to realize that we need to be able to stand on our own feet. For too long, we have relied on a model that doesn't work any longer, a combination of cheap energy from Russia, cheap goods from China, cheap security from the US. This model doesn't work any longer. We have to invest more in our own security.
You're talking about economic factors. I want to get to that, but if we can start with the military side of things, what role is there for NATO now?
I think NATO will still play a crucial role. I look forward to the NATO summit in June, and I would expect NATO allies to commit to a substantial increase in defense investments. We should remind ourselves that Russia has rearmed to a degree where the Russian defense investment is now bigger than the combined defense investment in the rest of Europe. So we have to step up. We have to at least double the European investment in defense.
And there are indeed moves in motion already to substantially increase defence spending in Europe. I do want to go back a little bit to the role of NATO, though. When you've got a US administration making territorial claims on a NATO member state, with President Trump repeatedly not ruling out using force to take control of Greenland, what damage does that do?
That does a lot of damage. Denmark is one of the closest and most reliable allies of the United States. Obviously, it's shameless to threaten Denmark, a close ally, with military means to conquer Greenland. Having said that, I don't think it will happen. But obviously, there is a potential for creating split within NATO when you are threatening an ally.
Right. So that's the point, isn't it? You know, if you've got these kind of splits within NATO, what's the alternative for European defence, for European security?
I think we should strengthen the European pillar within NATO by creating a coalition of the willing, a number of European countries that are capable and willing to do what is needed to, for instance, deploy a peacekeeping force to Ukraine or step up when it comes to defense investments. So to create a coalition of the willing could strengthen the European pillar within NATO.
So you still see this role for NATO despite these kind of tensions. Another aspect of this, of course, is trade. And you began this discussion that we're having now by talking about Europe's economic security. Is it time for some kind of European or economic NATO?
Yes, indeed. Now we have seen the Trump administration declare a trade war against the whole world, except Russia and North Korea, that have been exempted from the punitive tariffs. I think our response to that should be to strengthen the ties between major democracies in the world. Concretely, I would suggest to create what we call D7. 7 democracies in the world: the European Union, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, South Korea, Japan, New Zealand. And I think the backbone of that should be what we would call an economic Article 5. We would consider an attack or coercion against one of those 7 countries, an attack on all, and we should respond collectively.
I'm struck that your list of 7 global democracies does not include the United States.
Yes, but I mean, the United States have chosen isolationism and to declare trade war against the whole world. But having said that, G7 should not be a closed club. If other democracies in the world want to join, they are welcome, including the US. But for the time being, I don't see an American willingness to exercise the global leadership of the free world. So that's why the US is excluded from this D7.
It is extraordinary and perhaps a sign of the times to hear a former head of NATO talk about a new alliance without American participation, in fact, in response to American unfriendly acts.
Yes, and for me, it's been very painful. Since childhood, I have admired the United States. I have seen the United States as a natural leader of the free world. But if the United States has decided to retire from that leadership role, then other democracies must take over.
And when it comes to security and the security aspect of this, clearly for Europe, the question of Ukraine is right there in the center of the debate. Donald Trump has said Ukraine cannot join NATO. So what should be done to provide Ukraine with security guarantees?
I think the right way forward would be to deploy a European peacekeeping force in Ukraine to monitor a possible ceasefire or peace deal and to guarantee security of Ukraine in the future.
Well, you've spoken of a coalition of the willing and a European force deploying to Ukraine. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about this over the last few weeks and months. A lot of talk, but not much detail, at least not publicly. Maybe you're aware of a little more about what's going on behind the scenes, but do you get the sense that things are moving painfully slowly on this track?
Well, to my mind, it's moving too slowly. And I don't want to see a coalition of the willing becoming a coalition of the waiting. We have to take concrete action. And instead of begging for a place at the negotiating table where things are decided, we should make our participation, the European participation, indispensable by bringing something to the table. And that something would be a coalition of the willing led by France and the UK, the 2 nuclear powers in Europe.
So why is it going so slowly, do you think?
Well, my best answer is that typically in Europe, we spend a lot of time discussing and talking, and too little efforts are spent on taking action. However, I do hope that Putin's attack on Ukraine and the election of Trump would be wake-up calls that tell us in Europe that we have to move fast and not only discuss, but take concrete decisions.
Anders Fogh Rasmussen, thank you very much for joining us. We'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.